Why do I use the Micro Four Thirds camera system? Well, before I get into the detail, I just want to share my disclaimer. By no means do I consider myself a brand snob, and I certainly don't consider myself a sensor snob. If any of you have seen any of my videos before, you'll know that I often shoot with a Canon 400D APS-C sensor camera. And I do this because I enjoy using this camera just as much as I do my Olympus and my other Olympus cameras, and it just hopefully proves that I'm not tied to a system and I'm not tied to a brand. I bought my first SLR camera when I was 16 and it cost me £50. It was a Praktica MTL3, and since then I've used Pentax cameras mainly, film and digital cameras. And what I found throughout the years is that as my camera kit grew and got bigger and bigger, I was starting to question whether I could be bothered to take my camera gear out because it was so big and it often prevented me for taking the camera out. About 4 or 5 years ago, I realised that my Pentax was getting quite old. It was 15 years old at the time and it's starting to show quite a bit of wear and tear. And I decided that I needed to get a new camera. So I had a look round the camera shops and I spotted a Fujifilm X-T3 and I really liked the look and feel of that camera. And beside that camera in the same shop was an Olympus OM10, and I'd not really thought about Olympus before, and when I looked at the camera I thought, that looks like it fits the bill perfectly for me. I really liked the whole idea of that camera. So I went home and I did all my research and I decided that Olympus and Micro Four Thirds was the solution for me. One of the issues I was having was that my Pentax APS-C camera just felt a bit big. When you add up my camera, the 1855 lens, I had a 5200 lens, the tripod, the bag, all of the stuff that goes around it. I found that all the gear was really big and heavy, and quite often I'd question whether I should take out my camera when I was out with my family. And more often than not, I didn't take it. And especially since we've now got cameras on our phones, it's a lot easier just to take our phone out. In looking for a new camera, I decided I really need something smaller and lighter. And that's really one of the main fundamental reasons why I went for the Olympus. Despite being really happy with the system I have, Micro Four Thirds does have its negative points. And there's a couple of really big glaring potential negative issues that Micro Four Thirds presents. The first one is the lack of shallow depth of field. So when you're trying to take those nice pictures of portraits of people to isolate them from the background with a nice out of focus background, although Micro Four Thirds does that very well, it can never compete with the likes of a full frame or an APS-C camera, mainly because of the laws of physics and the size of the centre inhibits the shallow depth of field. And that's because on a full frame camera f2.8, the equivalent on Micro Four Thirds is 5.6. So you can see immediately you're losing out on shallow depth of field straight away. However, having said that, you do get fantastic shallow depth of field with Micro Four Thirds, but it just cannot compete with a full frame in particular or an APS-C camera. The other glaring challenge you have with the Micro Four Thirds system is the lack of low light performance, and that's because of the sensor and the pixels. So you can only have so much density of pixels on a sensor, and the pixels can only be so small. If you can imagine, a tiny pixel is never going to let as much light in as a bigger pixel, and that's why on a full frame camera you have a bigger sensor and you can have bigger pixels, or as we see these days on those big sensors, the pixel density is forever decreasing, but still the low light performance is never going to be quite as good as a full frame or an APS-C. Of course, having said all that, for me the low light performance and the shallow depth of field is great, and I'm perfectly happy with them. But if you want to blow up your picture to 200, 300, 400 times, then obviously you may well see a difference. If low light performance and lack of shallow depth of field are the negatives, what are the positives, I hear you say? Well, the fact is Micro Four Thirds camera with their smaller sensors don't require supermassive lenses. And that makes the system lightweight, compact and portable. And where I might have had to take a much bigger bag out with me every time I went out with my camera, I can get my camera and my lens all in a much smaller bag, and I never ever have to question whether I take my camera out these days. I just do it instinctively. The other really good factor of Micro Four Thirds is the cost of the cameras. The cost of the professional top-end cameras compares about the same as the other brands. But on the used market, they're so much cheaper, and you can get a really, really good professional quality camera for a super cheap price, and a number of lenses, all much cheaper than you would do if you went for a top-end APS-C and definitely a top-end full frame. So the price of the cameras is a massive bonus, and you get super quality gear at a much lower price. The mirrorless camera system was jointly invented by Kodak and Olympus, and beyond then Olympus teamed up with Panasonic and developed the Micro Four Thirds system, with micro meaning mirrorless and doesn't necessarily refer to the sensor size. And because Olympus and Panasonic work together, all of their lenses use the same lens mount, and all of the lenses are interchangeable. So it doesn't matter whether you've got a Panasonic Lumix camera or an Olympus camera, you can use the same lenses. So you've got top quality lenses from two top manufacturers that work perfectly together. And in my opinion, I think Olympus in particular may well make the best lenses on the market. I'm sure that you would disagree with that, but that's potentially what I think, because the lenses are amazing. Lumix launched the first Micro Four Thirds camera in 2008, and since then the system has been going stronger and stronger. And now the Olympus OM1 has taken the photography industry by storm, and you see many more people now moving over from full frame and APS-C just because of the Olympus OM1. That's my view on the Micro Four Thirds camera system. And if you're looking to change or to get into photography from using your smartphone, and in particular if you're a lady photographer and you've got small hands and you don't really want a large camera, it's certainly a system for you to look at. It's certainly worth having a look at the system to see if it suits you, because I think it may well do. I know a lot of you that watch my YouTube videos enjoy or use Micro Four Thirds, and I've no doubt that many of you probably agree with me, but I think it's definitely a good system to use. I'm not suggesting it's better than APS-C or the picture quality is any better, because I think they're all the same. But for me, the two main things are the size and weight of the cameras and the cost to buy them. If that's important to you, as it was to me, then it may well be a camera system for you to look at. Thank you very much indeed for watching this short video. I hope it's been helpful, informative, and I hope you've sort of got a bit more information or another view about what Micro Four Thirds cameras are. But once again, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheerio.